Welcome to a very special episode of the Comic Book Strategic Investment Podcast. I'm Nico, your weekend update correspondent with CBSI, and we are here with my friend Manole from the Hall of Comics. Would you please introduce yourself to our live audience?
Hello, audience. I am Manole from the Hall of Comics. How are you tonight?
So for those who are unfamiliar with you, who are not old school CBSI guys or gals, can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in comics?
So originally, I started collecting comics middle school. Actually, on my way home from, I would walk from middle school to where my parents worked, and there was a newsstand on the way, and I would just drop in. And one day what caught my eye was G.I. Joe comic, because I collected G.I. Joes at the time, and decided to grab it. They were 60 or 75 cents. From there, I would go every day, and then they told me, oh, they only come out once a week or once a month. So I would go back and wait for them to unstrap some comics, and I would wait for that comic every month. And then I started to stray a little, and I saw things like the Punisher limited series, Elf Quest, and other books, Spider-Man, and that started my whole foray into comics. And after that, I did stray into finding an LCS.
Things got serious, right?
Yeah. You know, I needed it. I needed the comics. The thing about it is too, it helped. I wasn't very good at reading when I was younger, and comics actually helped me learn to read better, which was a great thing. So that's one of the things that it helped me through school.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were telling me before we started about your trips to the flea market.
Yeah. So after the newsstand, we'd go to flea market probably once a month with my parents, and I saw a comic guy in a corner in like a little 6x6 cubicle. So he had, a bunch of long boxes, but he also did like a pull list. And I was like, oh, okay. So we started a pull list, and I would show up there every Sunday, either by bike or my parents would drive me there. And I would start, getting into more books. It's like I almost had to have every one of them coming out every week. That's how I was. I wanted to read it all. I was absorbing it all. So it was cool. There was even times where the flea market was closed, and my father's like, the place is closed. I'm like, but I want to go. And I'd go there, and the guy would be in his van with all his books for his subscribers there in the parking lot by himself. Yeah. So it was cool. It was great, and then eventually what happened was the LCS opened up in the area, and I went there because it was right down the road from my parents' place. So it started moving around in that direction.
Now, were you still in the Boston area or the greater New England area? Or?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Boston, but it was about 45 minutes south of Boston, a city called Taunton. It's pretty big, 55, 60,000 people. So it's a decent size. But there wasn't any comic shops there at all. So the first one that opened was downtown. And then it ended up, another one opened not far away, maybe like 20 minutes in the other direction, because Taunton is so big that it could support another one. And I ended up going there for a while, and this place did cards, comics, gold, silver. It was just a mix, but it's one of those stores that kind of opened up during the boom because comics were so popular. They added that, moved to a big place, and started ordering like crazy. And I was there every Friday waiting for the delivery. And eventually he's like, yeah, here so often, why don't you just work here? And I said, okay. So I actually started working there. I was working there for years until I went off to college. Wow. Yeah, and that got me collecting even more because every week
Now, have you collected uninterrupted?
So no, what happened was
Yeah, have
after
you
I went off
collected
to school,
uninterrupted?
after I went off to college, actually I stopped. So I'm kind of a repeat offender. I stopped for about, I want to say it was about 20 years, 18 to 20 years. And I started up again about 2009. And the reason I started up again, I was, my books were in my mother's basement. So I started looking through them. I'm like, are any of these worth anything? And I started looking through them. It's like, I'll just start looking them up. And eBay was a thing. So I started looking them up on eBay. And I was like, the books I had set aside thinking they were worth money weren't worth anything. And, it ended up being,
Right?
two books that I found were New Mutants 98. And I was like, oh, wow, this is worth $100. Great. Or $200, whatever. I was like, that's pretty cool. Didn't think it's $1 book. Nobody cared about the thing at the time. And the other book that was still worth something was the ASM 129 that I had purchased. And that's a whole different story. We'll get into that. But after that, I was like, I'm just going to take them all and I'm going to sell them, and move on. But once I started looking through them, I ended up getting the bug again. So you get the smells, you get the paper smell. And I was like, yeah, honey, I'm going to take these back home. I'm going to research them and I'm going to sell them. That might have been 8 or 10 long boxes. They grew. They didn't shrink. So, and that's, after that, I was looking around for shops. So I went to multiple places, some I didn't have a great experience with, some I had great experience with, and I ended up sticking with that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have a very similar story about I'm going to sell all of these, and didn't work for me either. So can you talk a little bit about how those early days were when you got back in 2009? Were you quick to jump on the CGC boards? Where were you trying to get your information about comics?
So originally, I did end up on the CGC boards, and I ended up buying a lot of variants from people that were going to shows. Some of them worked out. Some of them, like, let's for instance, Nowhere Men, went nowhere. I paid a lot of money for some of these variants that aren't worth anything right now, and it was kind of a kick in the face where I was like, I gotta be a little pickier with what I'm selecting. So I strayed away from the CGC a little bit when I found the G Plus. I don't remember if it was 2012, 2013 or something when G Plus launched.
It would have been end of 2012, beginning of 2013, because I remember the private chats on the CGC boards that were like, we're getting out of here, we're going somewhere else. And that's when I got out of comics. Yeah, so I didn't get to enjoy G Plus, but I love hearing people talk about it.
I miss G Plus. I miss the format really the most. It was easy to maneuver when there was things posted, and things would stay where they needed to stay. It just seemed to be an easy format. I don't know why somebody else can't really knock it off or buy the API from them or something. Just it was a great format. The fact they could have open sourced it and somebody could have used it, but it didn't happen, it looks like.
So at what point in time do you buy into a retail shop? Because that happened, right?
So when I ended up going back into comics, like I said, I found an LCS that I really liked. I stuck with it, and I was there for a couple years. And that's where I actually met my business partners, Jake and John. So they were actually working that LCS, and I would talk to them anytime I was in there. I was in there often enough, at least 2 or 3 times a week. I would text and chat with them once in a while. And they ended up saying, we want to leave and actually open up our own shop, and we'd love you to be the third partner. And I was like, because I was into the speculation game a little bit. I had just started learning the pressing game app. It was a little after, but I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn that. And so what ended up happening was I ended up, I spoke with my wife because it's a big thing to, get into a business. And she gave me the okay. And I said, all right, I guess let's do it. And my business partners came up with this great business plan. We took it, ran with it. I think it was under 5 months. We were in and opened by it was actually our grand opening was within a week of Free Comic Book Day in 2014. So we had a soft opening a few weeks before, friends and family, show it around, work out some bugs. Did our grand opening that weekend with Free Comic Book Day. We figured, why not? We might as well get as many people in it as we can. And, then we started moving and grooving. It was good because, I've learned a lot of things. They've learned a lot of things. None of us have ever owned our own businesses. And there's a lot of trial and error, especially it's 3 partners. So there's a lot of give and take. And it's great though. I wouldn't do it with anyone else. They're great partners.
Wow. So tell me about Holocomics.
So Holocomics, it's over in Southborough. It's Route 9 West, which is a main. It's not a highway, but you can pretty much drive 60. So you could literally pass the shop and miss it because it's a 2-lane highway divided. It's a shop. It's probably about 900 square feet, and 99% of what we carry is comics. We don't carry Magic. We don't carry baseball cards. If we carry any kind of like action figure, it's a superhero or a comic related figure. We carry Sideshow. And yeah, that's the website. We like to cater to collectors that want more hands-on, because anybody can go online and buy a book, but until you have it in your hands and look at it, you don't know what you're getting. You can't open it, look at it, see the staples intact, no matter what people say on eBay or any other store. You really looking at it, just like any other shop. You walk into a shop, you get to hold it and see what it is. So we try to cater to people that want to collect comics.
You've been doing Holocomics After Dark.
Yes.
On Facebook?
So After Dark, we've been doing now since, I think it's 2018. We're actually doing our 96th After Dark episode this week on Monday. It's Monday nights from 7 to 8:30, 9 o'clock. We end up doing quite a bit. We've gotten it down to where we can feature 72 books in about an hour and a half. The system we have, So my business partners, Jake and John, a couple of the people I work with there, we have a couple other people that work with us, have perfected it. So we actually watched a whole bunch of other, auctions and looked at them and said, well, this works, let's try that. Well, this works, let's try that. This doesn't work, let's not do that. So the thing about it is it's a lot of time taken out of somebody's day to sit and watch an auction. So we don't want to waste their time because they probably have other things to do. So we try and get as much content and books in there as possible within that hour and a half. And it's been working out well.
I just purchased my first book. Yeah, I just purchased my first book from a Facebook Live auction, and it was the worst experience ever. Although 100% worth it because of the book I bought. But they had a Batman Beyond third print, the Batman Beyond 1/3 print, right? There's 4 copies on the CGC census, and I was like, my buddy calls me and is like, dude, they've got that crazy book that you've talked about, and sent me the link. And it was just this little rickety thing, and I'm just like throwing numbers until I scare away the other bidders. I didn't get to see it. They didn't hold it up to the screen. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced ever. How is what you guys do just entirely different? Can you kind of describe it for people who haven't participated in it yet?
So ours isn't an auction style auction. It's a buy it now auction. So you claim it. So we post prices. And what we do, we don't reveal the whole board at once. That way people can slowly absorb what we're doing. We put up the books and we'll flip it and say, this is such and such a book or a set, $30 and it's yours. We wait a little while. We explain a little bit about the book, what happens in it, or if it's a first appearance or something that happens. And if somebody posts, whoever posts first, with Facebook's delay, it's whoever's hits our computer first, because a lot of people will see their own name hit first, but that's because it's on their computer. Because I think Facebook has like a 20-second delay, so it confuses the people. So we explain that to them. And we go through it, and what we do at the end is, we do a 15-minute timer to cram through it and get through it. We wait. If there's a minute left, we'll wait and we'll recap whatever's left. And then if people decide later on they want a book that hadn't been claimed, they can email us, and we keep those in a separate area of the shop. So we know, okay, yeah, we still have that in stock. We can sell that to you if you want, because some people go back and go, hey, I kind of wanted that book. I should have grabbed it. And we give them that option to do that.
Nice. You're providing grades for the books, or it's basically like new comic sets, or you do like a lot of high price items, mid-grade sort of, or hodgepodge?
So it's a mix. So it could be a hot book from last week that came off of the stand that just didn't sell out. We might have overordered a few books. Sometimes we'll order some for the shelf. We might order some for online, and we might say, oh, let's order a couple extra of this book because we could put it on after dark. We'll do sets. Sometimes we'll do a graded book row. Sometimes we'll do like a $5 row. Every book is going to be $5. And a lot of like the sets. So sometimes we'll do variants. Obviously variants are very hot, so we'll get variants. Sometimes we get some store variants that we'll throw up there from other stores. Sometimes we'll even throw up, like the Treasury side edition or something like that. And we also do like a giveaway too for anyone that purchases something during After Dark. We'll do a giveaway of a graded book that gets randomly picked out of a hat, and they get to win that, or a omnibus, or actually for our anniversary, which just passed, and we're going to do the 100th episode soon. We're going to do maybe like a piece of original art to throw up there from one of our local artists that does work for us. So yeah, we do a lot of different things.
Wow. You mentioned the retailer variants. Now, Bryan, can we show what I think is your and my favorite retailer variant that the Hall of Comics has done?
I love that. So that book came about. I remember there was talk about action figure variants, and it was on one of the speculation groups I was in. And I think what had just come out was they were talking about the Scud book. I think there was a action figure variant, and then there was another book that had come out by Justin Jordan that did an action figure variant, like second print. I'm trying to recall the book. I'll remember it in a minute, but it was the Image book.
Luther
and
Strode?
It was no, it was after Luther Strode. Oh, I'm drawing a blank here. I'll go back to it and I remember which one it was. So I thought about the book and I was like, wow, it'd be great to do an action figure variant. And I was like, what would be great to do an action figure variant of an actual action figure, like one of the ones I used to look for. We had these stores called Benny's. It's like a regional New England place where you could buy tires, and you could buy garden stuff, and you can get your grill, and you can, it's just a little like mini department store, but they always had action figures and toys, but they had their action figures in a glass case locked up because people would probably steal them. So you'd have to get the people to open it up so you could look through them to see if they had the action figure you wanted, because you could only see the front row. So every time I went, I would look for Snake Eyes because you couldn't find him. And the one time I finally found him, I think it was like, $2.99, and I was the happiest kid in the world. My mother bought it for me, and I played the hell out of those toys, believe me. And then my brother had them too, so we got like 2 or 3 generations out of a lot of those toys.
Nice.
But what ended up happening was I talked to my business partner. I said we should maybe try and do a variant. We never done a variant before, but let's do one with a small press. You don't have to do 3,000 to 5,000. You can do less books. So my partners, John especially, contacted a couple people we know and got the ball rolling, and we ended up getting Atkins to give us some great art. And from there, that's we loved it. It was a great book, and we still love it. I have multiple copies I keep for myself, and I give it to my kids and say, this is great. This is my childhood. So the one story I wanted to tell you about these is, when we have them on our site, people will order them off eBay, and then they email us complaining that it wasn't an action figure because they think it's an action figure we're selling. And it specifically says, comic book number, 216 and so, and it's in this condition, and there's multiple pictures, yet they still order it thinking it is an action figure because it looks so much like one, especially with the bubble.
It's unbelievable.
It still happens. Actually, it still happens. Yeah. With the different covers we did.
Yeah, no, it's breathtaking. Every time I look at it, I like it more. It's maybe my favorite variant ever. You guys have captured something that I can't quite capture with words. Yeah, you did the Baroness as well?
Yeah, we did the Baroness with Elias Chatsoudas. That's his original Baroness. He's amazing artist. We've seen him multiple times. He was local. He moved a little more north, but we do see him once in a while at shows. And he actually, I think, does these bubbles especially. He's really great at doing that plastic bubble. It's crazy how good he is at that. But I think we still have the original art for this cover too. It's beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. Piece of work. Yeah, and we didn't want to do too many of these because we didn't want to be repeating over and over and over. So
like the
we
Star Wars variants, right? I mean, they beat those Star Wars action figure variants into the ground. It breaks my heart what they did with them.
Oh, I know. I know. I mean, some of those are still great, though. Some of the ones JTC does are great. There's a lot of them, though. Definitely is a lot of them.
Now, what about the Hulk variant? Can we share that one? You guys have all of these available on your website?
We do. I don't
that aren't
think
sold
we
out.
Have. Yeah, the ones that aren't sold out. I don't think we have this one with the Deadpool left. I think we might have a couple of A covers. I don't think we have any B left. This one came about when I was on a site and I saw the Archie Hulk and Wolverine homage that came out that was going for really good money. And I was like, we're looking for another variant to do. We had never done a Marvel variant. and looking through previews, I saw, hey, there's a Hulk book coming out, but it's She-Hulk. I was like, that won't do any good. I was like, wait a minute. What if we actually do a homage with people that are kind of related to the people from the original homage? So it's not Archie, it's She-Hulk with a Wolverine. So it's an actual homage of a homage with these people that we know, which is good. The thing with Deadpool, I actually wanted him to draw Deadpool using him as a chair, eating popcorn, almost like he had killed him and using him as a rug. But you can't really put in requests like that. So this is still amazing. Believe me, I love it. I actually own the original art of this. I ended up purchasing it because I love it so much, and I can show it to you if you want. But it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. And it's even better.
I'm gonna have Bryan figure out how to get zoomed in on you.
Yeah, you got it. That's good.
Let me see if I can do this.
So I don't have many hanging up, but this is, one of my favorites. So you got it zoomed in enough. Yeah. So that,
yeah,
I ended up, purchasing. They don't give them to you for free. That's for sure. The artists. So it was great working with Ed on that. Yeah, that's one of my favorite we did Marvel wise. I definitely love the G.I. Joe that deep in my heart. I still collect G.I. Joe things, especially Snake Eyes. Love them. I ended up with like a sideshow Snake Eyes fighting the Red Ninjas, because I love that diorama so much. Things like that, because it's G.I. Joe. Just goes back, watching the old cartoons on TV, and all they're doing is shooting at each other's feet, never actually hit each other. They're like stormtroopers, they can't hit each other.
Can you tell us about the ASM 129?
So the ASM 129, going back to when I was collecting at the flea market, I would go every week, and I might have $4 or $5 to spend that I earned working with my parents.
How old were you?
I had to be 12, 13, give or take. It was middle school, so yeah, 13ish. And I went every week. And one day, I'm looking through his stuff, and I see this yellow book, bright pop, tacked on his wall. I said, "What is that?" He goes, "Oh, it's Spider-Man 129." I'm like, "So what is it? Who's that guy?" He's like, "Oh, that's the Punisher." I'm like, "Oh, that's great." I was like, "Well, I'd love to buy it. How much is that?" He's like, "It's $18." I'm like, I can't buy that. That's 3 weeks worth of comics right there. I was like, I can't buy that. There's no way. I was like, I'm going to have to pass. That stinks, But going back, I think it was 3 weeks, a month later, it was still there. And I think I happened to have a little more money on me, or I asked my parents, hey, can I have an extra $10 or something? And I ended up buying it. It was like, this is great. And read it, and I was like, this is amazing. It's a great book. And book I kept over the years, and when I got back into comics, it's one of those books I had set aside as thinking I paid a lot. This is the first back issue I ever bought. Everything else was new books. This is the first actual book I paid more than cover for, and I was like, oh, that one I'm gonna have to take care of that. I paid a lot of money for that, and I ended up getting it graded, and I still have it. It's one of those books that unless I have to pay my mortgage where I'm that destitute, I'm not selling that book. It's just one of those books I'm keeping forever, going off to my kids. Or love that book.
Yeah, you mentioned that you'd pressed it a couple different times.
Yeah, so after I learned to press, I didn't press that one right away. When I learned to press, I started pressing on like a long box of ROM books, dollar ROM books, learning, the ins and outs. For a long time, I was like, I can't introduce like heat I would just cold press, and then I was like, all right, maybe I'll start using heat. Okay, and then eventually I was like, well, the dollar books. Okay, maybe I'll start using moisture, because moisture damages books. So I was scared. Eventually, I learned the whole thing, and was like, I'm ready to press my Spider-Man 129. So I ended up pressing it, submitting it, and got this 8.0 on it. And I was looking at it going, I swear that's better than an 8.0. So I ended up cracking it, pressing it, and resubmitting it again to CGC, and they gave me an 8.5. So I've kept it that way. I don't think I'm getting any higher. And you can submit and get lower, so I'm just leaving it where it is. And I'm very happy with it. Considering I bought that when I was 13, very fine plus. It's been well read. I've read that who knows how many times. So, I mean, it's in great shape.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've kind of been delaying asking you this because it's it's just not a happy subject. But here we are. I've lost track of the month count, but it's like 4.5, 5 months into COVID-19 America. How's this impacted the Hall of Comics? How's it impacted you and what you're trying to do as an entrepreneur? Can you talk about that experience?
So yeah, going back, it was, I think, late March when they finally shut down everything in Massachusetts except for essential employees and essential Walmarts and all that. Yeah. We it was a kick in the face because we do have an online presence. So what my business partners and I were doing over the last few years is we've created our online presence with the holocomics.com. We had an eBay presence. We started doing the After Dark. So what we ended up doing was we pivoted, and we decided we're going to have to go all in on the online. So we shifted right away to getting as many books online as we could. We have the Comics for a Buck site that ties into our main site that we were starting to we were actually putting things on there for the last couple of years. We weren't actually ready to launch it yet, but we decided to launch it, and it ended up helping us through that tough time because there was no other income coming in. There's no store presence. We couldn't do curbside. We couldn't do deliveries. Like local deliveries is what I mean. So we ended up having to change our even our After Dark had to change from Facebook to Zoom because we couldn't all be in the same room. So that was a challenge in itself because it's a whole different process, different software. The lag is different. It was, and the other thing too is all the new releases were halted, so we weren't getting new books in, so you couldn't get those on. So it was a shift, and my business partners and everyone I work with did an amazing job, getting books on there. We had like 10,000 books on that Comics for a Buck site ready to go, and we're still adding. So it's every day people order stuff. We have to add. We have to keep adding, and dollar books are. We have dollar boxes in the store, so it's the same as people going through the dollar box at the store. So they just go through and look and pick them. So you could send 100 books to someone, and picking 100 books isn't easy when they're $1 each either, because you're spending a lot of time picking $100 books. But it ended up helping through the whole, pandemic, which was great. That shift, focused to online and focused to streaming. Was what got us through it, because we had like 4 avenues, 4 different 4 different ways where we have retail, we have online, we have the Facebook Live, and we have the professional services, which is our pressing and grading submission service. So we had 4 of those running before, and we had to cut one of those out. So that's it was a big shift. So I couldn't even do the professional services, because that's more of a face-to-face thing. Yeah, you could have people mail things to you, but it's not the same. That's not the way we were doing business. I like to sit down with the customers and show them, okay, this book isn't worth grading. It's worth $1. You're going to put, $30 to $40 into pressing and grading it. It's going to be worth $20. So as I tell some of my customers, I don't mind taking your money, but this isn't worth grading, so I don't want to. There's ways of going business where you don't want to just take everyone's money. You want to give them a service, and that we try to provide service also.
Yeah, can we talk about your pressing skills? From what I have been told, they are the stuff of legends. Your
Who told you that?
reputation preceded you. Well, that's initially how I reached out to you, if you recall, over a year ago, maybe closer to 2, and I did my homework, and they said you were the best, bar none.
I appreciate that. I've learned a lot over the years. Every book you get, every company that releases a book, even every month, sometimes changes their paper. I like to test them out on books I have that are of similar date, and paper quality and thickness before I would do that same type of book with a customer. That it could be a book I never did before. So you don't want to do, test it on $1,000 book. You want to test it on something that, is obviously much less expensive, because if you damage that book, you're not bringing it back. So I've learned a lot just over the years. Lots of practice pressing, and I do it I do it at my house. I sit and I have a separate room just for pressing, and it's nice. It's not right here. It's a different area that I hide from my wife, because she doesn't want to see all that stuff out. It's one of those things where you got to keep your family happy too.
If people want to communicate with you about professional services, can they reach out through the website?
They can. So the email is pro-services@theholocomics.com, and they can do it through the website. At our website, under the communication link, they can email the store, and it ends up coming to me. Anything to do with pressing, grading, signature verification through CBCS, because we use both CGC and CBCS depending on what the customer wants. If they have a Jack Kirby signature, you don't want to submit it to CGC because you're not going to get the verification. So you want to submit it to CBCS, who actually just got new cases which look amazing. They're a lot closer to what the CGC cases are now.
Good stuff. So the market's wild right now.
I've never seen anything like it.
I don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah. So the only thing I can say about the market now is there are a lot of people that have an extra $600 a week to spend, burning a hole in their pocket, and they're spending it. And there's people that are just online more too. But maybe there's a shift too. There's people that decided to get into collecting, that decided, hey, that's the book I want, and I'm going to buy it. I don't care the price. They have a little bit of extra money to spend, and they do it. And some of them see the movies and want to buy it. Movies help drive I think movies more are driving a lot of readers to certain books. And it definitely is driving speculation to purchase certain books.
Yeah, can we talk about the one that I just love, which I think is arguably the greatest spec play in the history of modern comics, which you achieved. I, let me see if I can get that one to show up.
So that book was, I don't recall who posted it. It wasn't mine. I didn't speculate on it. Somebody had posted it on G Plus or Facebook at the time and said, I think this is the first cover appearance of this character, so and so. So, it might be something to look at. The time, it was a $2 to $5 book, and it wasn't anything. But at that time is when I was still buying almost everything I saw. So I started looking for it. Because I am a shop owner, but I still actually have my own personal collection too. So it was one of those books I wanted to grab for myself, have a couple copies. So I ended up finding one or two at a couple of online shops, but I couldn't find many anywhere, and it was bothering me. So for some reason, I think it was 2 years after release, I ended up checking Diamond, and they were still in stock at Diamond. So I ended up buying 10 copies. Said, hey guys, look, this is going for $6 to $8. It might be something. Let's grab a few copies, throw them on eBay. So they ended up, we put them on eBay, and they were going for, it's $10, and then $12, and then, $15. Like, okay, we're out of them at $15. It didn't cost us that much. Let's order 10 more. Okay, they're still in stock. So we ordered some more. And, they slowly were climbing, and then other people were selling them too. What ended up happening was, I said, these are doing good. They're probably like $20, $25 books. Let's just get the rest of them off of Diamond. But by the time I did that, they only had 5 or 6 left. And so we grabbed what we could, and that was the final one. And, we ended up having quite a few of them sold. We didn't keep any of them at the price they're at now, but we didn't lose money on them. So it's great, but it's one of those books that just kept climbing and climbing, and it just slowly grew. And now, there's people listing them at $4,000 and 9.8. It's crazy what that book has done.
Yeah. Holy cow. I mean, I just shelled out serious money for a copy so I could just have one. I wasn't around for any of this to kind of watch it. And now she's slated for a TV show. You were kind enough to let me know that was going to happen before it did. You're like, I think it's going to happen, George.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate that, my friend. I really admire what you do and what you've done. I want you to know that. And
thank you.
We have a lot of people that watch the show that I think are less experienced collectors, people who are just getting back into comics. Can you kind of give some ground rules or advice for people? I mean, obviously, this is kind of like a 1 in 100,000 sort of book, right?
It is. So,
they're not all going to be like this.
No, because so originally when I was collecting comics, when I was working at the original store back in the 80s and 90s, even then I was buying everything. I was like, I want every book. I want to read every book. And when I got back into it, I was still reading, but I also shifted into, I also want some of this to be worth something, so my kids could have something to sell. I'm not saying I can put my kids through college, because you'd love to, but that's not going to happen. But I don't want it to be worth less than what I paid. So when I first got back into it, I was buying everything again, and that's when I said I have to stop that. I'll buy what I want to read, and then buy certain books that I might think could be worth something. And I might be right 10% of the time. It's like stocks. You don't know what's going to go up or down. But a lot of the books that are worth money in my collection is stuff I bought because I like the art, or I like the cover, or the storyline. and some of those books ended up going up in price just for those certain reasons. My favorite artist is Art Adams, so I pretty much buy every book he does, whether it's worth $1 or worth, $100. So I bought a lot of his variants over the years that came out that weren't worth anything, but some of those are actually worth more now because it ended up being a first appearance of someone or a variant that was hard to find. So and it's not my quote, but buy what you like, and and be smart about what you're investing in. Don't jump on every book that's out there. Do a little research, and you'll be okay. And don't overspend on things too. Don't go over your limit. If you have $20 to spend $20. Don't spend 200, because then you'll be out of money.
Yeah. Now, did you have any really good comic book mentors as you've kind of grown as a collector?
Mentors. I don't know if I had any mentors. A lot of the stuff that I got came from my LCSs, the shop where I met my business partners themselves, and then the CGC group and the G Plus group. Just seeing all the different posts on those, I learned what to pick and choose, what I wanted to do. So I don't know if I had an actual mentor per se.
Yeah, as much as a group of them, I guess. Right?
A group, yeah, G Plus, the CBSI group was probably the main one that I was in after getting out of like the CGC group, and it was like Ben C and we had, what was it? There was a whole group of that early CBSI group. I think it was with like the first 100 that were tight. Trey Kenyon was one of them. Leggett. Quite a few others. I can't recall the names, but there was that tight group. There was a lot there with a lot of information. So if you want to say mentoring as a group, that was like a mentoring group that grew. Yeah.
Yeah. And today, where are you going for information about comics? I mean, how do you stay up to date?
So I'm on quite a few Facebook pages. I am on CBSMT. I am on CBSI. I'm on the Facts group. There's quite a few groups like that I stay in. The thing about it is I work another 60-hour job.
I might have gotten you thrown out of 2 groups. I apologize for that in advance. Just so that you know.
I'm sure you did. That happens.
Sorry about that.
I don't take offense. But I have plenty of groups, but I work my main job, so I can't keep track of everything going on in every group all the time. So my focus is on my store, my pressing and grading, my family, and my job. So I just try and keep to that.
Yeah. Now, do you belong to any of the pressing groups online?
I might be a part of a couple of the pressing Facebook groups. I don't really follow any groups to get information from them, though. It's more like sometimes I'll have a tip here and there of certain things to do on certain books. I couldn't tell you the exact one, though. If you need one, though, I can tell you. I can look it up for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
So everybody is sort of like living their childhood fantasy now with comic books on the big screen, comic books on television. I mean, I think it's safe for me to speak for you and everybody else in the comic book market. We never dreamed that this was possible, right?
No, not at all.
Is there anything you're really looking forward to?
So I am looking forward to the next phase in Marvel. I'm a Marvel guy. I've always been a Marvel guy. I like a lot of DC, but not all of DC. But Marvel, I don't know if it's the way it's written, the way it's drawn, the characters. You know, I love Batman. I like Wonder Woman. I like Aquaman. I don't love Superman because it just he's all powerful and it's like almost boring in a way. So I like the way Marvel has written a lot of the characters. Not every story, but you know, I like the way they did it. I've loved the way Kevin Feige has converted the MCU into this, Goliath of a movie industry. It's amazing what he's doing, and I just hope he stays there and keeps going. Especially if they keep Spider-Man in the mix and some of those characters, because I mean, it's one of their main characters, and they don't really have control of them.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking, to be honest.
Yeah.
I guess I have such high expectations for Phase 4, and I'm mildly apprehensive about the Eternals, mildly apprehensive about a world, where big budget pictures get delayed.
Yeah.
My God, what's happened to the Black Widow? Are we ever going to see New Mutants? And in spite of all of that, right, the comic book market's booming. People are hungry for comics. I mean, I know I am. I don't even want to admit to how far I drove today to try to just look at a few books.
I think one of the reasons people might be getting into comics is they're not getting the movies right now. You're relying on streaming services. Most of them are released. You're through a whole series in a day or two, then you need something else. So I think people are shifting to reading comics, novels, things like that. I've seen a lot of that because there isn't movie money to be spent. So some of that money's being shifted. It's like when the movie industry was complaining that people weren't going to movies anymore. It's because people were watching the movies at home, or they were spending them on video games because they could spend $60 and they could play that game for a month, where going to a movie cost them $60 and they were there for 2 hours. So that's that shift of money that happened, and nobody's going to these movies, so they put that money somewhere else. And plus they have that extra money, so on top of the money they weren't spending, they have the extra money to spend.
Where do you see the comic market headed over the course of the next 5 years?
That's tough. With the whole thing with Diamond and DC, it doesn't. That's not great for anybody, I think. Yeah. So when everyone was pining, we need more competition for DC. It makes sense, competition. But when the competition popped up, they actually took DC away from Diamond. It's not like they could actually offer it too. So if they were going to do that, shouldn't they have said, well, you can sell it, and you can sell it, not take it away and give it to two other people that have never done it before? I think they should all be able to sell it, right?
Absolutely.
So now you have three companies. Yeah, that's not. So now you took it away.
It's like, what do they say? The velvet glove over the iron fist. It's just stylized separate monopoly.
Yeah, and also the fact they took it away from a distributor and actually gave it to retailers to sell is kind of, some people don't like it. We'll see how it ends up.
A lot of complaints from retailers, a lot of complaints from longtime customers of DCBS. I've got a ton of friends who, have been buying books from DCBS since 2012, and they're like, all I do is get damaged books now. And I thought that was like, just kind of like crybaby complaints, and then I heard it again, and I heard it again. I don't know. Who knows what that works or really looks like in the aggregate. But the point is, there's lots of loud voices and an increasingly large number.
Yeah, I
people are
still
nervous.
see. The thing is, I still see people buying physical copies. There are a lot of people that read digital, and that's great because they're reading. That's good. Even when I got back before I even got back into physical comics, I actually started reading digital
Oh wow!
before, because I was like, it was a little less expensive, and then I was like, I don't love it. I want the books in my hand. I want to be able to smell the paper. I want to be able to flip through the pages, and I want to own it and resell it if I want. Digital, you can't do that. So having that physical copy has multiple reasons. Nostalgia, having that physical copy because I like that physical copy, and the option to resell. And the fact that they're even charging the same exact price for digital as they do print doesn't make sense to me. Why isn't it 99 cents for everything instead of
Right.
$3.99? Doesn't make sense.
So I've been telling the same story over and over again for like 2 weeks because it's so shocking, and I'm hoping somebody can make sense of it for me. There's this book I'm sure you're familiar with, Thor 5. It's the first appearance of the Black Winter.
Yes.
Okay, and it's like $50 or something on eBay.
I think it's 70 now.
Yeah, I didn't know. There we go. So a week ago, I was in a Half Price Books, and they had a copy of Thor 5 for $13 in their little showcase books. And I'm sitting there with a buddy who went to look at books with me. He's like, look what I found. And I'm like, so somebody purchased this book, turned it into CBS, read it, turned it into Half Price Books. They processed it, put it up. They process it at eBay prices, right? Like it's not really Half Price Books for collectibles. I was advised of that recently too. But anyway, processed it, priced it, put it in their showcase at $13. My buddy bought it, presumably sold it again, because he's like, this book's $50. And, he wasn't going to keep it, I'm sure. Presumably sold it again. And as I stand here today, we're like, I don't know, one weekend out. It's now $70 on eBay.
Yeah, I mean, it's going up. It's just going up.
Well, but my point is, Thor 6 hit the shelves on Wednesday. I've never seen this kind of like, Superman 75 and the Black Bag in the 1990s didn't have this kind of aggressive sort of like explosion of price. I can't think of the last book that did.
Well, actually, I think I've heard stories of people buying 10 or 20 copies of The Death of Superman and selling them back to their LCS literally the day they bought them for $30 or $40 because they were selling them for $50 or $60 to people. So they made money on them. But, that book is $10, $15, $20 now. It hasn't gone up. It's not going to go up. It's one of those things. It'll go with inflation now. It's not going to go up for any other reason.
Yeah. But that kind of voracious appetite for comic books, I here in
I think it's the whole thing with Null, and people don't want to miss out on another Null. That's a crazy expensive book now, but that one grew gradually. It was a $20 book for a while, and $30 book, $40. Now it's $100 raw book, maybe $200 raw book. And people are like, it might be the same thing. So I'll pay $50 for it just in case.
Yeah, frankly, I like the Black Winter as a character theoretically better than I do Null, but that's another discussion for another time.
Yeah, I like having both. I like some new characters. It's great. We need some new characters.
That aren't amalgams of some old characters. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, Spider Pig Gwen. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, exactly. And I like what Cates is doing. He's putting it out there. He wants to do I think he'd write all Marvel if he could. they won't let them though.
You and me both. You and me both. So I promised I'd only keep you for an hour. Before I let you go, can you tell everybody where they can find you? I really appreciate you joining us today. I feel like there's 1,000 unanswered questions. I wish I would have had the time to ask, but this is a real treat for me. And I appreciate that because there absolutely will be a next time as long as you're willing to come back.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on. You can reach us, our website at theholocomics.com. You can reach me at proservices@theholocomics.com. It's pro-services@theholocomics.com for, pressing, pre-grading, pressing. I can tell you if it's worth pressing and grading. Yeah, you can reach me with that. Any kind of questions like that, anytime. I appreciate you having me on again.
It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a great night.